All right, it looks like we are live. So happy Tuesday, everybody. And I guess, Brian, if you want to start and just kind of introduce yourself and what you're doing here, and then I'll go.
Sure. Thanks, Molly. For reference, Molly was actually, ironically enough, my peer advisor when I started in OCD back in March, I believe. So it's been a while, and it's great to see you again, Molly. It's awesome to get to talk to you on this. So I'm an engineer from Maryland. I have obviously OCD. I've been going through an OCD for a while. I've been in the recovery phase now, where it's every couple weeks instead of every week like I had been doing. I'm here basically because I reached out talking to my therapist, Robin, before her, Alex, and they reached out to Jenna to see if I could help, just because I know a lot of people who have gone through this. I've had OCD my entire life, and anxiety, and a little helping of depression, so you get the trifecta of good mental stability. And I grew up seeing my mom go and constantly check, recheck, more of the just right, the compulsions, that it just had to feel right for her. And I just thought that was normal. And then my brother had the same tendencies, maybe not to the extent my mom did. And I just thought that's just the way it was. And I was as typical, people just thought it was weird, oddball. And since I was, studying being an engineer, they kind of assume you're going to be a little bit off kilter. And you're used to checking things all the time. But especially during, the last year and a half of fun or so, when I was left alone more time with just my thoughts, that it got a lot worse. And I noticed that I could contain them, and I tried to not stick out whenever I'm at work, and I'd be distracted with people and tasks. And so I didn't have a chance to ruminate, because it was always, you got to move on, go to the next thing, get that done, move to the next thing, go to another meeting, what have you. So I'd always try not to stick out or try not to be the oddball, and just, I could cope better. But when it was just me and my thoughts, it started getting worse, where I'd either, reread, text, email, and I found myself stalling because I doubt what I put in there, and I could repeat the email maybe like verbatim front and back, and then it would take me minutes and then longer than that just to respond. And by the end, it was the same thing. Nothing had changed. And it was just getting in the way of me getting out the door in the morning. It was getting to the point that even my kids had noticed, and I didn't want them to think that that's like normal, that you have to go through and you should be rechecking a light switch. It's shut. I'm standing in the dark. I know it's off, but you got to check just one more time, because maybe I didn't do it right. And then maybe next time you do it 4 times, and maybe you do it a couple more times. And I knew it was kind of ridiculous. And I'm like, I don't even know why I'm doing this, but it was so ingrained in habit forming. And I mean, it was to the point that I didn't want them to have to go through, ridicule from like loved ones and friends and family. They'd make fun of me for it. And I say, well, you're right. Like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I really can't explain it. So it was through NoCD that I actually found it by accident. And then I got the app, and then I started watching some of the webinars. And then I decided, the heck with it, why not make the call? And it was when I made the call that it took me 4 hours to do something that should take me a half hour. And I almost missed the original 15-minute call. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And from that, it was amazing. After I did that call, then I talked to Mollie before my first session, which I have to thank you again for that, because it was very, very, if you get a chance, talk to Mollie. It's very comforting, and she's very good to talk to. So there's my endorsement, if that can. But it was just learning. The more I started going through sessions and realizing that there was a lot of things that didn't make sense to me previously that now made sense. Like, this is why I would do a certain thing, make sure this was unplugged, or this is why. And a lot of things I hadn't associated the root cause of. I just been doing it so long, it was habitual, until I started doing the ERP. And then it started clicking, like, oh, I did this because at one point this happened. Mm-hmm. And in the back of my mind, whether I realized it or not, it just kept popping up. And there was some things where I doubt, like relationship OCD or something, like have to reread text or email and think, are they mad at me? Maybe they're mad at me. I'm not sure if they're mad at me, for nothing. Like a friend isn't going to get mad at you or something stupid, but yet I would have that constant doubt because OCD is the bully and wants you to doubt everything. So from that, I started to realize the things I was doing. And I started trying to help people at work because just the environment I'm in, a lot of people go through the same kinds of stress and the constant checking because it's part of our job. And there's the fine line between checking and excessive checking, because if you're being thorough or because you can't help it because your mind is telling you, I want it black and white. It's either shut or it's not shut. And I can't deal with the uncertainty. And I liked trying to talk to either my friends, colleagues, or even my relatives, like my cousin or someone. We all kind of have the anxiety and OCD running in the family, and just to be able to talk to them, to try to help them. Like, I know why you're doing that. I can help if you want, like I can help you or point you in the right direction. Or just the main thing, my kids, I don't want them to have to, when I see a little bit of tendencies where they have it or not, I want them to have like a resource to talk to someone or just have the info out there, which is why I really like NoCD, especially the app. You can just hop in, hop out whenever you get a chance. And the webinars, especially, it's free. You just hop in, you get your question, and you try to get it answered. And everyone's nice, and the community is really good for just being open and honest, because not a lot of people talk about this. And when I was growing up, you didn't talk about it. And especially my family, you just didn't acknowledge it. So I wanted to try to help in any way I could. So Robin reached out to Jenna and said, can we help in any way? Like pass out flyers, I don't know, whatever. Be a discreet team. It doesn't matter to me. So I guess in a nutshell, that's long story long. I guess that's why I'm here.
I don't know how to follow that because I don't have as interesting of a story, but I appreciate all of that. That's really great to hear. And I love that you're here. I love knowing that my conversation with you months ago, meant something and resonated. And so much so that you are now on the other side of it and you are helping others who might be having similar experiences to you. And like Brian said, I am a peer advisor at NoCD. So what that means is that I obviously also have OCD, and I have gone through NoCD's therapy program early last year. And I am a support. I am not a clinician, but I am, an extra layer of a resource as other people are going through their therapy sessions. And I do host these webinars occasionally here and there. And it's really fun to get to meet new people face to face or face to screen. And so that is a little bit about me. And I think that there are some questions already, so we can dive right into answering them. Let's see. Okay, so Daniel asked, how do I stop ruminating over mistakes? I view doing compulsions as bad and mistakes and the consequences that ensue, rumination, lack of presence, poor behavior, etc. It's like the flip side of compulsions, and a lose-lose also makes ERP difficult when doing a compulsion is also anxiety producing in that sense. I don't know how else to describe it, but if I were to narrow it down to cognitive distortions, I'd say it may be hyper responsibility, magical thinking, magnification, and catastrophizing. I hope this makes sense and you understand. I know it's a long question. Please help. Thank you. And then a little bit more. I think this type of OCD mindset pattern started when I had a traumatic incident injury and realized if I hadn't done my compulsions, maybe it wouldn't have happened. Gotcha. What do you think, Brian? I'll let you take that one first.
Well, I was going to say it makes sense, though, if you had the injury and you're going to start thinking, if you hadn't done the compulsion, that's, again, OCD is going to make you doubt everything. That's what it does. And it does it well. It does that very well. To stop ruminating over mistakes, I guess you have to, as much as this is going to sound weird, you have to just let it go. Like you have to, then the main thing, Dr. McGrath and everyone says, you just got to sit with it. And it sounds silly and it sounds ridiculous, but I know I found out if you just say, so what? Like maybe, like, I'm not saying it did because you did the compulsions, but it's like, okay, maybe it did. Maybe it didn't if I hadn't done the compulsions. It may have happened anyway. We don't know, and we'll never know. That's nothing you can do. And thinking about mistakes, especially ones in the past, if you dwell on them, it's not going to change anything. Mm-hmm. So you just accept, mistakes happen. Everyone makes mistakes. Heck, I do them daily all the time. If you saw how many coffee stains I have on my shirts, I mean, things happen. I'm accident prone. I make mistakes. You just deal with it and move on. But things are going to happen, and you can't control everything that happens. And I would say maybe trying to just accept that you're going to make mistakes and consequences will happen. Sometimes they're going to be lesser degree. Maybe it's to a bigger degree, but we're all human. We're not perfect. No one is perfect. What do you think, Mollie?
Yeah, I think you said that perfectly. I think something, because rumination is probably one of my biggest compulsions as well. And I remember the phrase that you can't ruminate yourself out of a problem, which I think is really true. If there is a problem and there is a solution, that's one thing. But if you are just kind of stuck in that cycle of ruminating and not really getting anywhere, like the hamster wheel that just goes forever but doesn't actually move anywhere, which it sounds like that's what they're describing. It's not helpful, and that's obviously so much easier said than done.
Yeah.
But like you said, just hop off that hamster wheel, let it exist, let it be there, let the questions kind of pop in when they do, and not feel the need to answer them. Is kind of the goal, is to just let them exist and not assign anything to them.
I agree. You give them less weight, then there's less burden on you to keep ruminating and thinking about them.
Absolutely. And then Wesley has asked, I am in a phase where my liked thoughts feel normal to unnormal things, but it's like two sides of my brain, normal with OCD, and then that. I am not entirely sure. So they said I can't be in the moment. Either I'm aware. Any tips? It sounds like they're asking for kind of tips on how to be more present in the moment. In that case, yeah, is that
so preoccupied with everything else? Well, I know just for me, there's a lot of times, and maybe it's from part of the anxiety, part of the OCD, whichever one. To put it in the blender, call it whatever I have. There's a lot of chaos going on in my mind, a lot, and it'll take a lot to concentrate on what's going on. Like I could be having a conversation with someone and the intrusive thoughts are popping in and out, like a freeway going in and out of the on-ramp the whole time I'm talking to them. And then by the end, I'm like, I don't even remember what their name is, and then I'm questioning what really happened. Is it like a false memory or not? I was like, did that happen? Or wait, and then I'll get stuck thinking about that. So if you have normal, unnormal thoughts, it's which one is which. I mean, that's kind of a tough one, because they said if you have too many going in, it's kind of like you said, which one is the false memory, which one is the real, the thoughts, and trying to focus on one. I guess is trying to be present, try to turn down the noise. I don't know if that makes any sense of trying to just be aware of where you are and try to, like, if I try to really focus on what's happening and who I'm talking to or whatever, I can kind of turn down slightly the volume on the intrusive thoughts, because they're going to happen. And sometimes they happen a lot more frequent than not, especially like I was telling you earlier, Mollie, with stress or tiredness. That's a big one. They'll come on a lot stronger and a lot more frequently. So I guess I would say if you're try to focus as best as you can and let those random thoughts, try to just let them come in and out and not give them much weight, like you were saying. But what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think you said everything really well. I love all of the analogies, the freeway. I think as well, trying to label thoughts as normal or unnormal or abnormal is kind of dangerous territory, because thoughts are just thoughts, and they are not, as hard as it is when you're in the moment, the thoughts are not the problem. It's the reaction to the thoughts. So I think, just labeling thoughts as, good or bad, or OCD thoughts or my thoughts, I think can be pretty dangerous sometimes. And like you said, just letting them be there, letting them drive on the freeway, but not trying to think of an analogy, not hopping in the car with them, just letting them kind of go by. I hope that makes sense. When my pure O is so low that I can easily ignore the thoughts, should I still be setting aside time to do scripts or planned ERP, or is response prevention in the moment of those thoughts enough? What do you think? As someone who's in therapy more frequently than I.
I would say yes, you'd still be setting aside time, because it's kind of like the adage of practice makes perfect, that even if your pure O is really low at the time, it's a good way to maintain, for lack of a better term, like when it does spike up again. So you're ready, because I will still do ERP even when things aren't happening. I'll do random things, like I will tell my daughter sometimes, like, before we leave, turn on a light, or don't. But I don't want to know if you turned one on before we leave and go away for the day. Just so in the back of my mind, I'll think, is there one on, or did that turn on? Which it doesn't matter, but it's forcing me to not pay attention to it, or not have to go back and check and say, oh, I did this, or like do something, move something out of order, and don't tell me, like, or don't, or like make me wonder. But it's something to keep me constantly trying to, so I don't lax. And because I did notice when I wasn't doing the ERP as much, as like a couple of weeks went by from travel and stuff from work, I did notice it was starting to creep up again, because I wasn't practicing it. I was just letting it go, and I'd find myself going to check something more times than normal, or going over like an email, trying to reword something so it was just right, or stalling to do something because it didn't feel just right. And I have to say, whoa, stop. Like, don't go back. You're taking steps backward. Like, don't do this. And I know if I had kept up with it, it probably wouldn't have been as bad. So I would say still set aside time. But so I don't know what's your thoughts on that, Mollie?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm sure that your kids love that. I'm sure that's so fun for them to be like torture dad in ways that he's like consenting to. But yeah, I would say as well, I think that it is definitely necessary just to keep up the analogies. I've heard ERP being related to like working out, in the sense that if you work out a certain muscle and you do it for 6 weeks at a time, and then you just stop working out that muscle, all of those gains, all of that progress you've made is not, it's not going to fall off completely, but it's not necessarily going to keep up. So I think practicing exposures and the response prevention part is kind of like that, in that way, that the more you do it, like you said, practice makes perfect. I would say practice makes progress. Not to correct you, but I don't know if perfection is a thing, if it exists at all. So yeah, I would say definitely, when the thoughts are a little bit quieter is when it is probably really important to still do those planned exposures, because like you said, otherwise it just kind of falls through. And if we don't keep working at it, the OCD is going to pick up on that, and is going to, try to sneak its way back in any way that it can. That's my thought. Somebody's asked about nail picking. How does OCD connect to nail picking? Do you have any clue?
I would say if it's just another compulsion to make you feel better, if that is something you're picking their nails because either you're trying to turn down stress or anxiousness, that's no different than some people will count or something. For me, similar, one thing I would do, which made no sense when I started an OCD, is I would go to leave a room and I'd have to, and we had fun with the ERP on this one, I'd go to shut the sink off, and I'd have to like point at the light, point at the sink, point at the car magazines. I don't know why. I didn't have a reason for that one. And like, and then point the door and leave. And it was just something I did because it felt better. Whenever I was nervous, it would pop out. And the ERP for that was I just took the magazines and just threw them places. That was what I said, just throw them, see what happens. I said, I don't know, maybe they have a party when I'm gone. I don't know. But I would say if the nail picking is something that you don't want to do, but it calms down your anxiousness or your uncomfortableness, and it makes you feel temporarily better, but it's something that you find yourself keep doing more and more. I would think it'd be a compulsion like that. It may not be, and it may be something similar to like, was it like having a tick or something? Like sometimes I'll do things with my hands that don't notice I'm doing, and it could be related, could not be. It's just something I do that, it, like makes me feel better when I'm nervous. And it's something I don't realize I do until someone points it out to me, but it's something I would pick up on when I was going through ERP. I was like, oh no, that's why I do that. Because it's linked to this, something that would set me off. So those are just my thoughts on that one, Mollie.
Yeah. I think, like you said, if kind of looking for the reason or the purpose behind the nail picking is probably a good place to start. Like you said, if it is to lower that anxiety and that's kind of the intention behind the action, then it is probably a compulsion, in which case exposures would be the way to go. And the response prevention, I would think, would be, to start out delaying the action. So to start out, delaying it by 30 seconds, 1 minute, whatever it is, and keep making that longer eventually is I think would be the goal in that.
Yeah, totally.
Because I think as well, I mean, you can have just like nervous tics that are not inherently detrimental. They don't stop you from doing things. They don't hold you back. But if they are causing damage to your fingers or they are taking up your time, that is when it would probably become more of a problem.
No, you're definitely right. Because it's something like some people twirl pens or something at a meeting. It's just, or the fidget spinners, or when that was a thing. And that's one thing, but when it starts interrupting your routine or starts getting in the way of your normal day, that's when it starts to become an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Any tips for dealing with schizophrenia, OCD, fear of going crazy? It's causing me so much stress because the fear that's produced by these irrational thoughts feels so real. Yes. So that is a hallmark of OCD, is the thoughts feeling so real. And it's the type of thing that I'm sure is said all the time in the OCD world. But the content of the thoughts is irrelevant, in the sense that, your OCD has latched onto this fear of going crazy. Tomorrow it can latch onto something completely different. And that's not, as hard as it is, that's not the part that really matters. It's the response to those thoughts. It's the reaction to that fear that is really holding you back, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's the one thing. If it didn't cause you stress, it wouldn't be OCD. If it was something that made you happy all the time or something you want to do because you enjoyed it, then that would not be OCD. But yeah, it's going to feed off that stress and the fear that's going, and it's gonna seem real. That's what it does, and it always seems real. And the more you ruminate or think of it or give into it, the more real it becomes. And that's when you have a lot of the false memories or any of that, because it seems so real. And if it, like I said, if it didn't cause you to be uncomfortable, or if it didn't get in the way of your life, it was something that was happy or like a reward, then it wouldn't be OCD. And that's really the hard part about it, is because you doubt, and it seems real, and whatever it does, it seems real. Like you said, that the content of the thoughts is irrelevant. It makes you start doubting yourself and doubt what's real, and they seem more real than sometimes what you're doing, like at the time. And it's so yeah, no, you're spot on. I agree.
Yeah. And I think it's the type of thing where at the end of the day, maybe you are, maybe this person is schizophrenic. Maybe they are going crazy. Maybe you are, maybe I am. We can't know. And like we were saying earlier, no amount of ruminating, no amount of Googling, no amount of reassurance seeking is going to answer that question or solve anything. It's just, going to keep feeding that cycle. and just kind of keep digging our hole, even deeper down. So let's see. So fearful that what if it's not OCD? What do you think?
Well, that's the thing. You're going to wonder. That's the OCD thought.
Mm-hmm.
What if is it not? I had that same mentality, and I was holding off originally calling because I kept thinking to myself, well, what if it's not? There's something wrong with me, or that's just the way I am. And I kept thinking, I don't want to waste their time. Like I'd call an OCD and someone else that really needs help, I would be, taking that opportunity away from them. That's because that's what OCD does, is you're going to doubt that. Like you keep saying over and over, you hear it all the time. And I guess, so what if it's not? Is like, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe you don't have it. It's going to be the uncertainty of it. You don't know until you find out. Like until you go to get a consult or call or take the first step, you're not going to know. Mm-hmm. So is it better to not know and still wonder and be in fear of it, or get the answer of, so what if it is, and you can move forward? So what if it's not, and then you find out what it is and you can still move forward? At least you can cope with it once you have a name for it and you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, even to kind of piggyback off of that, is even once you do get a name and you do, get a diagnosis and you're in treatment, you're still going to doubt it, because again, it is the doubting disorder. I literally do this for a living. I work with people who have OCD. I talk about my experience with OCD. And there not a day goes by that I don't doubt that I'm making all of this up, that I am, just making things up that don't make any sense. Just to, who knows why. That's, again, that's OCD. I don't need a reason. It just kind of will doubt anything and everything it can. So I would say, accept that maybe it is, maybe it's not. We can't know. There isn't, it's not like other tests where you can literally see the cancer cells, or you can see the, I'm trying to think of other diagnoses. It is, a little bit more in terms of your behavior and your reaction to things. But yeah, like you said, I think getting a consultation, getting some diagnosis or some at least clarity might answer some questions, but it probably will also raise even more questions. Yeah. And that's, I think like when you're a kid, you think that grownups have all the answers and that they know everything. No. And then you grow up, and I think the point of living is to ask more questions, not to find answers. I don't know if that's just my viewpoint on life, but I think, OCD wants us to have answers and certainty, and
you don't always get it. You can't.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah. And like you're saying about what if it's not OCD, trying to categorize, you can't do the magic test where, you put a drop in and turns blue or green to know. I had started seeing a therapist for anxiety or whatever first before I came to OCD. I knew I had the tendencies, and when doing the standardized testing, they said, well, you're kind of borderline, but we don't think you have it. So it's not even, they may not actually catch it. And especially they weren't specialists in it. So they didn't catch it. And some of it, even when you're talking about asking questions, is because some of the questions they had on that form, I didn't know exactly what they meant by it. Like, I didn't know what they meant by intrusive thought. I thought it had to be, someone telling you have to do this, or not just a thought coming in your head that like, I'm a bad person, or, I want to throw this banana at someone, or I should throw this Mountain Dew over the bridge for some reason. Like those are random thoughts that come in. I thought I didn't understand even what they were asking on that test. And even when I answered the same one, when I went to OCD, it's like the questions was a more thorough sheet. And because you guys are specialists, it's like, I kept telling the other therapists, like, I'm pretty sure I have this. Like, I've gone and looked, and that's the other thing, do research and like read into it. Although that can be dangerous too. If you go down that rabbit hole. Yeah. It's finding, like you said, just asking more questions is probably a key thing. And I definitely highly encourage that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there is a question for you specifically.
Oh, okay.
You want to read it?
Hi, Brian, fellow engineer here. Welcome. Are you able to speak on coping with OCD in the professional environment, more so the stigma around mental health and not wanting to divulge the condition? So I definitely feel you on that one. I know a lot of people I work with, I could tell, or at least in my opinion, which is not professional at all, I could tell that they have tendencies, or some of them want to reach out, and when they find out I have it, they'll ask me questions and they're comfortable to do it because they just know I'll give them honest answers. I don't mind talking about it. Mm-hmm. And it's, as far as coping in general, I found out when I'm there around people more, because I've still been throughout this whole thing been going on into work at least like half of the time during the week, if not more. That helps me a lot because being around other people distracts me, so I'm not stuck with my thoughts. That helps a lot. As far as and then some people, it's the other way around. It makes it worse if they're around people. Me, for some reason, I was always used to having those people around that I didn't have time to ruminate and think about the thoughts because I had to focus on something and get to the next thing, which I didn't realize helped me until I was not there. And then I realized, I have way too much time to think up here. And then I was like, okay, I didn't used to be like this. Or I was, it just wasn't as bad. Now, as far as the stigma of divulging it, that's a tough one. I understand that. I mean, that's one of the things. I know people who know about it. I don't broadcast it to everyone at work. Like, hey, everybody, look at me. Well, one, because not everyone is back. The people I work with that see me every day, they know about it, and my friends know about it. It's one of those things. If you don't feel comfortable bringing it out, it's not like you have to go and say it, because it's one of those things that everyone thinks, and that's the other thing. Everyone thinks if you say OCD, they think you just wash your hands a billion times a day. And I tell them that's not how it works. There is many types. And if you look at all of the many types, you probably find one like, I relate to that, which, is going down the rabbit hole too far. You might think, I have that, I have that, I have that. But a lot of people, they don't understand it. They still think it's because you have to have everything perfect, everything sanitized, or you're germaphobe or whatever. And I get it. Like trying to say it, if you go up to you talk to like your team lead, supervisor, however it works in your organization. But you don't necessarily have to bring it up if you don't feel comfortable. It's not something, especially if it's like interfering with your work a lot, I absolutely bring it up. My personal opinion, I probably could go and broadcast it out more, although I haven't seen a lot of those people in like a year and a half now. So it's like, I don't see them as much in person. I see them like this. Well, not even that. A lot of times it's on the telephone. So it's like I talk to them that way or via email. But if it's something definitely getting in the way of work, you absolutely should tell them. But if it's something that you don't feel comfortable or don't want to broadcast, I don't think you necessarily have to. Be honest with your like family or significant others. I mean, they're your support system. And there are some members of my family, especially, that don't know, just because I don't know how they would handle it, and I don't see them all the time. And I know they have it, and I know they've been ignoring it. So should I tell them, and should I encourage them to get help? Probably. They would shut me down in an instant. So I haven't, I know it's tough to admit it like here, but to some family members, I haven't yet. But works the same way. There's some people know, some that don't. And I'm probably not helping at all, because I'm giving you like both sides of the coin. Like, tell those people if it's affecting your work, but if it's not, you can keep it yourself. But it's one of those things, you don't have to necessarily divulge it if you don't feel comfortable. If you want to talk to people about it, that's fine. But it stinks that people will have that stigma about it because they don't understand it. And that's one of the reasons I came for this, is because people don't get it. They don't understand it. And I know a lot of people that don't. And when I start pointing it out to them, I'm like, you can fix it. Some of them ask me to like help them. Well, what would you do if this happens? I'm like, well, if I tell you, then it doesn't work. But if I make you wonder what I did to change the way you like these things set up, for example, and you don't like, just if I do that, put that thought in your head and you just sit with that, maybe it'll help after a while. But I was like, you don't have to do anything. I'll help if you want me to. If you don't, I won't. But it's, if you don't want to, I guess I'm dragging this out. I know if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to bring it up. And it stinks that there's that stigma. That's basically the bottom line up front. People still have that, and they're going to always have that. But the more we get the word out, that's the more we can help try to change that and say, like, hey, this is the way it works. My brain works a little bit different than yours. It's not a good or bad thing. I may be more creative than you because of it. It's like one of those things that happens. And that's what I try to tell my family. Like I try to tell like my nephew, like my daughter and my brother, even when we were sitting around talking about it, it's like, hey, our brains work a little different. That's just the way it is. Some people may pick on you for it or not. If you don't want to have to talk about it with other people if you want, but you can always talk to me about it. Like I can understand. So yeah, I don't know if I helped at all, but
yeah, no, I think you had some really good points. I think it's important to, like you said, if you're comfortable with somebody, maybe start with just one person and see their reaction and kind of go from there. It also can be really helpful if you are not necessarily comfortable talking about your own experience, like sharing somebody else's article or blog post or video like this, and hearing their experiences. I think sometimes kind of bridges that gap of, wanting to talk about things, but not straight away, just kind of diving into your own experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that might be a good place to start if you're kind of interested in opening that conversation up. What do you think about Vanessa? So she's asked, I've been doing ERP for a while now, but I still have doubt, but not as strong. Is this something that will always be with me? I guess only time will tell. Sounds like she answered her own question there.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say the doubt that it's always going to be there. It'll come in ebbs and flows.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the way it goes. And you may find out, depending on what you're doing ERP for, I like to think of it as like the little Dutch boy. You might put your finger in one leaking part of the dam and then it shuts out another one. So you'll find you start doing ERP. That's what I found. Mm-hmm. Something that wasn't bad starts getting worse. And then I try to focus on that. And then something else gets worse. And you're always going back and forth. But you're going to have the doubt. That's OCD. That's what it does. Yeah. It makes you doubt, and it does it well. And I'd say, yes, it's something, unfortunately, will probably, depending on the strength, they said it'll increase, decrease, but it will probably always be there. Maybe you might get to the point that it'll be occasional versus all the time, but doubt in general is going to be there, and it'll take many different forms, but you just have to accept that, oh, well, you're here. I mean, you're not paying rent and I wish you would leave, but it's, I'll deal with it for now. We got to figure out a way to get along. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I've also heard, just to throw in another analogy, that OCD is like a really rowdy or like drunk person getting on a bus when you are just trying to like mind your own business and go about your day. You can pay attention to them and get really upset that they're there and, really annoyed that they're loud and in your face. Or you can just kind of let them be there, do their thing. They'll get off the bus eventually. And that's kind of like you're saying, it'll come and go depending on where you are in life, depending on the transitions that you are going through. It might get louder, it might get quieter sometimes. But yeah, the thoughts, the doubt might always be there. And Vanessa answered her own question and said that only time will tell. And that's true. We can't know the future.
Nope.
Oops. This sounds a bit weird, but I randomly started obsessing over the time somebody told me my head looks big compared to my body. I know it doesn't, but I obsessed over it. Yeah, and that's Okay, hold on. Here's the follow-up. Whenever I see someone and look at their head, it looks a bit imperfect and I'm scared to imagine. I'm afraid I'll notice they have a big head. It's ridiculous. I know. So my first bit of advice would be that it's not ridiculous. It is just your brain kind of attaching to something that for you might seem a little silly or you said dumb and ridiculous, whatever it is, but it again just latches on to the things that it wants to, and that's the name of the game, to be honest.
It'll pick something, whether you don't get to choose what it latches on to and has you either ruminate over, or it could be something completely random, but for some reason that thought will stick with you, or that incident will have such a profound effect, whether you realize it at the time or not. Years later, it may pop up. And you may not even realize why you're thinking that. I mean, at least going back, because someone said that once. But there's sometimes where I've had things that would, years and years later, I'm thinking, why does that keep bugging me? Or why does this, when I see this? And then I'd have to eventually, if I could, tie it back. Some I don't remember. It gets so long ago. Or if I remember, I'm not sure if I'm remembering the right thing at this point, because it's been so long ago. But you don't get to choose, and it's unfortunate, because I would love to choose something that was a wonderful memory like that to ruminate over, like an awesome vacation, but that doesn't happen usually. No. It's got to be something that will upset you. And if it was something that you weren't scared to imagine or cause you distress, then again, it wouldn't be OCD, it'd be happy thoughts, and that's something completely different, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. It's not, it's for whatever reason, this is what your brain has decided to kind of bring up again. But it can be anything. And it's again, that reaction to those thoughts. So maybe you do have a big head. Maybe it is ridiculous. Maybe everyone has a big head. That's, part of, again, just part of being human, is accepting that we don't really know and we can't really know.
Or maybe you're just remembering, was it SpongeBob where it had Mr. Big Head and it wasn't that a SpongeBob character? I don't know if you
remember that.
I don't remember from Nickelodeon. I think it was, no, it was either it might have been Rocko's Modern Life.
Okay.
So, I'm dating myself on that, but someone will remember somewhere, and they'll appreciate the reference.
This is another good one about having thoughts. So I'm a delivery driver, and have intrusive thoughts on the job can make it more difficult. Any advice?
I mean, that's just the whole thing about not giving it weight, of let them come and go, because that's going to happen. I guess you could try to figure out what if anything is triggering them. I mean, intrusive thoughts are just going to happen. Sometimes there may be more. Are you more stressed when it happens? Are you in the middle of rushing to a delivery? If you have too many in a row, and the anxiety may be, if you can try to tame down the anxiety, it might help. It may or may not help with it. But it's the whole thing. And it sounds something silly. Like I said before, of, try not to give it weight, because that gives it meaning. But it's really the best way to do it. The more you focus on it or give it weight, the more real it gets, and the more it's going to keep bothering you. Maybe that thought, and then you might start ruminating on that thought, or may be a common thing that pops up later. But if you just let it, zoom in and out, and just say, hey, so what if that happens? Like, maybe you want to take, pull an Ace Ventura and kick the box that you're delivering. Like, that thought may go in your head. Right. You don't act on it, obviously, but you just let it go and say, you don't even have to acknowledge it. Just be like, it popped in. It's like a scene in the movie. It just popped in, like you're changing channels. You don't have to watch what's on that channel that you went through. Just let it go. Move on to the next one. It's an analogy central here tonight.
Really. It really is. And I think it's hard, as I think driving can be really challenging, because you can't do a lot of things to distract you like you would if you were at home or in, your work life. And I find driving to be really difficult for a lot of those same reasons, that you can't, there's only so much you can put on the radio, listen to, before it's dangerous. So, I think, like you said, trying to kind of separate the thoughts from yourself, recognizing that they are just thoughts. They're not The thoughts themselves can hurt you, and they can be distracting. They can make your job really difficult, but so can so many other things that you are in control of. And I would say find a good podcast or a good musical to listen to, something that's really long, that can kind of distract you when those thoughts start to can take over.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And I really like the OCD Stories podcast. I don't know if you or if anyone has listened to them, but they are, I think, really, really helpful. How do you talk to someone you're dating about OCD, or how can your partner help make it better?
I could definitely talk to this one.
What's that?
I can talk to this one. I have first experience recently because my current girlfriend / better half, whether she says we're on equal footing, but I said, no, you're definitely the better half here. I was just upfront. I said, listen, this is who I am. I have these are the issues I have. You're going to notice me doing this. And one of the things I told her about early on, I said, I'm going to apologize in advance because sometimes, the chaos going on in my head, I may not remember because I will have the conversation with you and I'm not sure if it happened or not, like the false memory. Mm-hmm. So I apologize if I tell you more than once, or if you notice me doing this in a certain order, I have to do this or checking things. I'm like, that's just who I have. I was like, I have OCD. I could tell you more if you want, ask me questions, but this is just who I am. I just want to be upfront. These things are going to happen. I can't help it. I don't want to do it. This is just something that happens. But I did know with her, especially, she's definitely the first one for my relationship. OCD hasn't acted up at all. I haven't had to do if I reread text or pictures or something, it's because they're happy memories when she's not around. That's something I do for, the happy thought, not something upsetting. Oh, I got to make sure, did I get this right? Is she mad at me? Did I not the checklist? And I did notice, especially, I remember telling Robin about this, just having her understand and realize what's going on. She definitely helps to calm me down because she'll ground me. Listen, why you're doing this? She's listen, I understand. Calm down. You're getting worked up, and she'll realize when it's starting to kick in, or she'll be like, all right, you're getting anxious. I understand. And she is very, very understanding about that. So be honest is the main thing, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with this person. And if you're not honest about that, then it will come out and they may start wondering later. But if you tell them and help them understand, then they can help you through it, because you need whether it's a therapist or anything, you need a support system for any of this, because it's rough trying to do it yourself. And that's what I had learned for the years when I had to do it, or all I got was mocking or not understanding. It's the support system is key to get you through it. And it keep motivating you to keep at it and not slack off. I mean, heck, she was one of the things, I told you, Molly, I was nervous about doing this because OCD's doubt me, oh, you're not gonna be able to do this, and you can't do this, and you shouldn't, you're gonna be terrible, this doesn't work, and all this stuff. And she's like, you're gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. So it helped. Everyone needs someone in their corner. So just explain that to them and be honest. And that's the thing, you should be open and honest anyway. So I guess that's my 2 cents of advice.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. I think the more you share, the more you explain what you're experiencing, they can't read your mind. And that is, that's obvious, but that is something that took me many years into my relationship to realize that anything I'm experiencing, my partner can't know unless I tell him. He can't understand what's going on up in my brain if I don't share it with him. And I think that's, like you said, just the more open you are, the more honest you are, even during the really hard times, and especially during the really hard times, it's necessary so that they can help you. I think, that they know what your compulsions are, and to not help you give into them is key to getting through it. So yeah, I would just piggyback what you said. Just honesty, open communication is necessary.
And if they can read your mind, they may be a supervillain, so you may want to just watch it.
what is your advice on getting out of the just one more time mentality? I find that researching OCD has become a compulsion.
There is no just one more time.
Yes.
That's the way it is. It always turns into more, because from compulsion checking, whether doorknob, light switch, the computer's off, I have my glasses in my backpack, something like that. There's never just one more time. It's always, you're going to doubt it, and it's going to keep going up in frequency and going up and how much time. And I understand that about researching OCD, because when I started, before I called, was looking at the OCD app and just looking online or reading up each one. I was like, well, maybe I have that too. They have that too. It says, look, I just look at this, and I found myself spending way too much time looking. I was like, okay. Or you could just try to get help and just not keep trying to self-diagnose. You're not good at it. So yeah, there is no just one more time, unfortunately. It's always, there's another time after that, and it's just keep going. There's no, I'll have just one more Pringle. It doesn't work like that. You're gonna keep going. And it's gonna keep egging you on to do it. So that's what I would say, that you just have to, it's like another form of reassurance type. I keep looking for it. It's, yeah, you're gonna have to cut yourself out, like tone back, say like, I don't have to look again. And that's gonna be tough to see how it gets you. Like with any sort of ERP, the first one you try it, it's gonna be rough, because you want to respond and your body's gonna react and go, okay, no, this isn't right. And OCD's like, I'm your friend, give in to me. Just come on, just, you want to, just one more time.
Don't ever listen to.
Don't ever listen to it.
Yeah. I think that's good. I think delaying the compulsion is a good way to start, because I know a lot of times with like reassurance or with certain things that you are kind of asking somebody else to help you with the compulsion, if you, or even researching, if you wait 5 minutes and you still have that urge to compulse and to research it, then that's at least 5 minutes longer than you were going to. And if it is just that one more time, which we know it never is going to be, at least it is 5 minutes later. And a lot of times when that, I've heard people literally set timers for 5 minutes from now. And in 5 minutes, when that timer goes off, they don't even remember what it was that they were going to research, because your brain moved on to something else that is, just as or not as important. So that would be my recommendation for the just one more time, and to have some grace for yourself, that it's hard, and it's okay to be hard. It's okay to have really hard moments and really hard days. And you're not alone in this. Sure.
And you're going to take a step back, even if you did 5 minutes and then 10 minutes, 15, you're going to slip every once in a while. The main thing is to catch yourself or recognize when you do and try to get back on track. I mean, that's the thinking, because you're going to come back to it, and it's going to make itself known, and it'll, make you redo it again at some point. But it's how you react and move on.
Yep. It'll weasel itself in there some way. All right. So Crystal asked, I've had OCD for 9 years, which was later accompanied by depression and general anxiety. Like you said, the trifecta. I take meds, have been an inpatient and outpatient, but I still feel so far from myself and the person I want to be. I'm in the Twilight Zone. How can I carve out a feeling of normalcy after so long battling my mind? Yeah, that is tough. I think I'm trying to think of how to feel normal. I mean, I don't even know what normal is.
What is normal anymore? I would say definitely cut yourself some slack, give yourself a break. You've been through the ringer with everything. I hear you too. I have meds as well, which have helped me a lot. I could tell the difference from when I started, before I took them, to where I'm at now. And I think it's, maybe you're not the person, and that's the one thing, you're never going to be the person you were at one moment. Like 10 years after, you're going to be someone else, and 10 years from now, you'll be someone else. You'll be a different version of yourself, but you're still you, no matter what. You may be a different version. You may be struggling to get back to who you used to be, or some semblance of what you're considering like your normalcy, but where you at now, just realize what you've gone through and how much progress you made. And I said, not reassure. That's a bad thing. I don't want to say that, but give yourself a break in that I'm trying to get to what I thought was normal, and realize you may not get to where you were before. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're a different person. You've grown and you've come out the other side from where you are, and you're going to be fighting. It's a lifelong battle. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's okay to not be at the normal. Just accept that, hey, I'm fighting this. I'm doing the best I can. And here's where I'm at now. And I could always make plans to step forward to something else, but maybe, get to a place where you're comfortable with yourself, who you are, and just give yourself credit where credit's due. And just don't beat yourself up over it. Cause like I said, you've been through a lot and you're trying to do all the steps and you're trying to get there. And just recognize that because a lot of people won't take any of those steps. Mm-hmm. They avoid meds, or they'll give in to anxiety and say, well, I'll just be nervous all the time, or give into depression. And it's tough to crawl yourself out of, especially the trifecta, like you said. Mm-hmm. It is tough because they all feed on each other. And it's going in inpatient, outpatient, like you're trying it all. So definitely give yourself a lot of credit. And I have a lot of respect for you for doing that. And just realize that what is normal. There's no one definition of normal. So you'll get to where you want to be, and just keep at it, and just, give yourself a break. I guess that's my advice.
Yeah, no, that sounded like a motivational speech. Yeah, I think that was perfect advice. Is you can never go back to where you were, because you have tools, you have skills, you have strategies in place. Even if they're not always being used, they are there. Mm-hmm. And like you said, you can never go back to who you once were, because you're here now, and that's what matters, is just moving forward.
Exactly.
And everything you just said, I'm just going to repeat.
Or hear me.
Is ruminating when you are thinking past events, situations, conversations. I tend to overanalyze everything, and I constantly feel that others are upset with me in some way. Yeah, that can definitely be. Yeah, I think rethinking past events, situations, conversations can be a part of rumination for sure.
Yeah, and that's going back to what I said before. It's similar, where I would constantly reread to try to get the message, the intent of the message or email or phone call or whatever, and keep thinking about it over and over, especially conversations. That's a big one. Think, are they mad at me? Because that's the doubt monster saying, are they mad at me? Because you're going to constantly think negative thoughts about yourself, or even when like I would know, like, why would he or she ever be mad at me? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, we've never been at odds at anything, unless we were playing like Monopoly or something. That just gets brutal. But it's like, that, but you're going to think it. And that's one of the things. And the more you think it, the more you keep thinking it, the more it gets more weight and keeps building up and gets worse. So yeah, that's you're ruminating, thinking. If you keep thinking over and over and over again, yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like the OCD is making, not saying you have it, but it sounds a lot like the tendencies of the doubting. You're thinking they're upset with you, and you may not even know why they're upset with you. You just think that they are. And that's one of the things too. It's like, I can't find a rational reason for it, but I just think they're probably mad at me.
OCD does not need logic. I mean, it doesn't use reason or logic. I remember in school, if I would raise my hand and answer a question, I would then spend the rest of the class just replaying my response, and trying to figure out, did I say it correctly? Did I sound smart? Did I sound put together? Did I say something wrong? And then you miss out on class. You're not present. You're not able to listen to anything else people are saying, because you're stuck really in the past.
Yep, exactly.
She thinks you sounded like a motivational speaker as well.
That
might be a new career for you.
Well, thank you.
Yes. I see a couple more, so we can answer, if it's okay with you, answer a couple more.
Yeah, no, it's fine with me.
Cool.
I'm not gonna.
I have started taking pictures of things things being unplugged instead of checking it a bunch of times in person, so I can leave the house. Is this helpful or fueling the OCD?
You're fueling it.
Yeah, that's such a good question, though, I think, because
that is a very good question.
Yeah, it feels like you're taking a step in the right direction in terms of, recognizing that it is a compulsion to check. But I think you're honestly just replacing it with a different compulsion.
Yeah, you're being creative about it. I'll definitely give you creative points for that one.
Yeah.
But because that's one thing I would do. I similar about unplugging something, and that's one of my things was I just plug it in on purpose and not even look at it. And it was the thing I knew I hadn't used that appliance the night before. So it's obviously off. I could touch it. I know it's off. But yet I felt the need to unplug it just in case what? I don't know. Like I said before, maybe the magazine started a party. Maybe they made s'mores in the kitchen. I don't know. Yeah. But it's one of those things that I didn't get that creative to the pictures though. That's a good one. But, it is, you're deflecting it and making it something else. You're taking, like you said, you're taking one compulsion and making it something else. You're still feeding it because you took that picture, and then how many times are you looking at that picture? It's like you're looking in person. You're just looking in a different format. You may look at it more because it's readily available. You may actually make it worse because you can just keep flipping and checking on photos rather than keep turning around and look. And, so yeah, that is, you're definitely feeling it.
Yeah. And it reminds me of like if someone were to stop checking, but then ask their, loved one, hey, you saw me unplug that, right? It's just another compulsion. It is definitely fueling the OCD. I think. And then one more question. So, John, you have no reason to be sorry. But he said, what is your advice on dealing with high anxiety symptoms, tunnel vision, derealization, shaking, etc.?
So, I guess the main thing, if you just have, and again, you don't have to apologize at all, especially for asking the question. But that's an OCD thing. I remember that the excessively apologizing, which I still do. But I would say if you're talking about the anxiety just by itself, and it's not anxiety caused by your OCD, one, you can limit, as it's ironic for me to say limit caffeine. That helps because I drink a massive amount of coffee every day. That's just the way I was programmed. And I think it's in my job description, so I kind of have to. But it's the try to calm down. It's easier said than done. Try to focus on something that makes you feel calm, I guess they say. Like an image, not that the overused go to my happy place, but it's like one of those, try to think of something that's not upsetting to you, like something you can always think about, was a person, place, or thing, or favorite memory, or favorite something, and just try to like slow down and breathe. Because I know if I'm getting riled up, I mean, I could feel it, and you know that you're getting, you can feel it coming on, and it's one of those, you got to take a step back, just relax. And it helps if you have someone around, obviously, to try to help you calm down and recognize it, especially so you don't let it get too high. But it's trying to find something that centers you or grounds you, and just try to whatever it was, especially if you know exactly what's causing the anxiety, try to not give into it. Or if it's something you're at somewhere you just can't deal with, like something that causes you had trauma there, or something that is a bad memory and it's just like really getting you, just if you can leave the area. I know avoidance isn't always, the thing, but to get out of that anxiety, I would say try to think positive, or think of something that calms you down, and try to focus on that, and just try to breathe, or whatever you can to calm down, get out of whatever immediately bothering you. I'm not sure if that helps at all. That's my thoughts on it. I haven't had that really in a while, of the high anxiety, and I mean, obviously the meds kind of helped me a little bit. But that's kind of what I was thinking. Molly, did you have something to to add in?
Yeah, no, I think you said that really well. I think, yeah, removing the situation or the trigger, and something to keep in mind, even when it feels untrue, is that the anxiety, the panic can't actually hurt us. And that might just be reassurance, but I know that when I have not had a panic attack in a long time, but when I did more regularly, it feels like the world is actually ending right now. So it is really hard to recognize that that's not true. That you will wake up tomorrow, maybe, maybe not, but the world, the walls are not caving in, the ceiling is not falling, and that's the only reassurance I will provide. But it looks like that was our last question, so I will just thank you again for being here. It was awesome to put a face to the name and to chat with you a little bit more in person than just over the phone. It was awesome to answer some questions and to get to know you and to hear your experiences a little bit more.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the opportunity to do this. I really enjoyed myself, a motivational speaker or not, or master of analogies. Thanks everyone for dialing in, and these happen all the time. So feel free to dial in. Like I said, the No CD app, it's free. These are free. There's the community groups too as well. And just go research, try to find out. I mean, the best thing you can do is ask questions and try to learn as much as you can. And if you're not sure if you have it or anything, I believe it was 15 minutes, the original free call. You could just make the call and then talk to someone, and then you can go from there. So again, thanks, Molly. Thanks everyone for tuning in. About all I had.
Yeah. And this live, so this will be posted on our YouTube page and on the Facebook page. So if you weren't able to watch it live, you can catch it there. And somebody, I'm not entirely sure, Dr. McGrath maybe, will be doing this again tomorrow night. So hope to see you all there. And I hope you guys have a good night.
Have a great night, everyone. Thanks, Molly.